Hi everyone, it's Jimmy. So today I wanted to share a video with you. So last Tuesday, the town of Londonderry, Vermont dedicated a historical marker for the birthplace of Burton Snowboards. So it was a very, very special day, and it's a day I'll never forget. I actually flew in from Illinois to Albany, New York, and I drove about an hour and a half to get there, and it was worth it. It felt very special because a lot of us didn't know each other, but we all felt like just one big family. We all just came together for Jake, and a lot of people that knew him shared a lot of stories, and it was very, very interesting to hear from just different people, and it was a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends, and I had a very special experience. So I wanted to share that with you. Donna's speech is there, and the unveiling of the historical markers there, and I hope you like it. I'm going to be putting out more videos of vintage snowboard stuff and my trip to Vermont, so I hope you watch those. Enjoy the video, guys. Alright, we're the first ones, guys. So that right there is a 1982 Burton backyard. This is Doug, and he's the owner of it. So he just told me the story of how he got it. Really, really cool. Yeah, guys.
Jimmy Carter was sworn in as our 39th president, but there was also something else especially significant about 1977 to many around here. An incredibly passionate and persistent tinkerer named Jake Burton Carpenter came to Londonderry with an idea he was obsessed with. He set up a workshop right down the road from here on Main Street. He hired a couple of employees, including Mimi and Mark Wright, who are here. I won't ask them to stand up because everybody else is standing up. He set up a workshop right down here on Main Street, and in the face of many friends who said, "What? Are you crazy?" started making his first snowboards. Jake's first workshop down Main Street was lost to fire a few years ago. It stood right across from a deer weighing station. I know, it's such a perfect location. Some were convinced that the building was just a front for a drug operation, but would that stop things? No way. When looking back, Mimi and Mark tell people they would sniff glue from fabricating the boards all morning. They'd stagger over to the mill right here, have a sandwich, then walk back to the workshop for an afternoon of sniffing. I guess OSHA didn't have much of a footprint here in Londonderry. But more than that, Mimi and Mark are still here, alive and well. So why Londonderry? As crows fly, it was in the epicenter of southern Vermont area ski locations, including Stratton, Bromley, and Magic Mountains. And as important, this whole area was littered with skiing fanatics. This was important to Jake. And all these years later, many still live in our little town of Londonderry. Mimi and Mark Wright, who I mentioned earlier, Lyle Blaisdell, who's here, who played a major role in the development of half pipes, Toby Chittenden, known early on as the half pipe acrobat, Ross Powers, who won a gold medal at Salt Lake's Winter Olympic Games in 2002, and before that, a bronze at Nagano Games in 1998. Herbert Schriebel, who's also here, snapping pictures. One of sports most prolific photographers, and more standing among you that I'm sure I'm forgetting, but please forgive me. Today, many years after Jake Burton Carpenter just happened to come to our little pleasant village, we're here to recognize Jake's contribution to Londonderry, Vermont, and winter sports around the world. At this time, let me take a moment to thank Laura Trishman, Vermont State Historic Preservation Officer, for so enthusiastically supporting our efforts to install a Vermont roadside historic marker in Londonderry, and she's here with a gaggle of people. And let me thank all of you for being here today to help us dedicate this tribute to Jake and the birthplace of Burton boards. So, now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Donna Carpenter, owner and chair of the Board of Burton.
Yeah, Donna, yeah!
Hi, Londonderry! Today! Oh my God, being here brings back so many different feelings. Gratitude, nostalgia, inspiration. I think I'm going to start with the gratitude first. Many of you here, Bob, Wells, Mimi Wright in particular, have been working toward an official recognition of Londonderry in the history of snowboarding for years. And I want to start by saying how grateful I am for all of you here who dedicated your time and talents to having Londonderry officially recognized as the birthplace of Burton Snowboards. We wouldn't be here today without your determination and sense of community that made this happen. So thank you all very much. Now on to nostalgia. You know, Jake had a lot of great sayings, and one of them was, you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been. And this is where he started. You know, before he got here, I think he saw it as a get-rich-quick scheme, right? He was going to take that snurfer. He couldn't understand why nobody had not taken that snurfer toy, the piece of wood with a rope on the end, a couple straps for your feet. Why hadn't it been turned into a sport? You could surf on snow with this thing. So he came here with big dreams and, you know, calculations that if he made 300 a day for 100 days, he could get rich quick. Well, Londonderry was the place where he realized that was not going to happen. I can remember he talked about the early days when he would go out. He had an old Volvo. He'd go out and he'd load it up with snowboards. And early on, he went out with, I think, 40 snowboards, and he came back with 45. Because a dealer said, we don't want this shit. It's not working. But he left his friends, his family. He left a great job in New York City, and he moved here because he had grown up skiing here, and this place was really magic for him. It's where he spent every winter vacation with his parents, his brother George, his sisters Catherine and Carolyn. And you know, Carolyn was actually, who's here? Carolyn's back there somewhere, in the red. She was telling us a story last night about how if she and Jake worked the lunch rush at Stratton, they got free tickets. So I think that he had a sense of this being a place of, if you work hard, you could still have a lot of fun. So like Bob said, in December of '77, he moved here. He started out of a barn in a house where he was the live-in caretaker, taking care of 2 horses in exchange for rent. And he worked as a bartender and dishwasher at the Birkin House. In exchange, Amo Henrik let him use his woodworking shop during the day. By day, he built makeshift snowboard prototypes and tested them right here in the back hills of southern Vermont. Some of you were there with him during those times, experimenting with different prototypes, trying to make those 50 boards a day, even though you could never sell them, and helping him try to sell those boards door to door. He came up with a logo, thanks to Mimi Wright Lyons now, who's here. He came up with this mountain logo that we have used as a symbol of our company since the beginning. Fast forward, Burton is a multi-$100 million company with offices in 7 countries and over 1,000 employees worldwide. And snowboarding has millions of participants around the world. It's actually really surreal to think about that. Londonderry is where it started, and right there at the Mill Tavern is where my story with Jake and Burton started. It was New Year's Eve. I saw him coming out of the bathroom, and I thought, oh, he looks kind of cute, right? And he said to me, can I buy you a drink? And I said, number 1, I think you can do better than that. Number 2, what are you drinking? He was drinking Jack Daniels and milk. And he had a wad of weed in his lower lip. And it was all for a bad stomach. He worked 14, 15, 16-hour days by himself, making these prototypes. He was exhausted. He was eating Slim Jims and drinking black coffee for breakfast. He always said, well, he did say like all the hard work at Burton started before I met him in 82. He really got the hard work done. But he also said I cured his ulcer. Jake used to call Burton our first baby before we had our 3 sons, one of who's here. You can't miss him because he's 6'8". Taylor is here. And just like a new baby, Burton gave us a lot of sleepless nights, but also a lot of joy. The thing that made Jake the proudest when he looked back on these early years was what we at Burton call the big P, perseverance. He didn't give up. He knew he wasn't going to get rich. He knew it wasn't going to be quick. I used to always marvel at a guy who failed shop class and could not put together an IKEA dresser to save his life. Somehow started a manufacturing business out of sheer determination. So in that way, I've said, you know, I don't know what the next 40 years of Burton and snowboarding is going to be, but I know we're going to be in Vermont. Vermont has always it's in our DNA. I think in order to survive Vermont winters, as you all know, you have to have grit, determination, you have to be a strong individual, but you can't do it without a strong community. And I really believe that that was the gift that Londonderry gave Jake. The sense of if you work hard, try hard enough, and don't take no for an answer, you will succeed, but you can never do it alone. You need a community to support you and to be there for you in the hard times. So the other feeling I feel today really is inspiration because of this community in Londonderry who's here to support us as we unveil this historic marker, the community of snowboarders around the world who are like-minded people wanting to stand sideways on snow, a simple idea with incredible consequences. You know, I always quote Governor Scott when Jake passed said, it takes millions of years to move mountains. Jake Burton Carpenter did it in a single lifetime. He changed the mountains. So as you can imagine, the last few years have been difficult for me, both personally and professionally, losing Jake. The loss of Jake shook our family and this community to its core, but it is communities like this where people like all of you come together out of love for snowboarding, a sport that Jake pioneered right here in Londonderry that makes it all worth it. So thank you for the love you've shown Jake and my family through your work of this historic marker. Thank you for putting so much time and energy into the first tracks exhibit, which I hope you'll all check out, at the Londonderry Historical Society. Even though the town endured what Bob talked about, severe flood damage in July, you never gave up on bringing this exhibit to life. And last but not least, for all of those who were here back in the 70s when Jake made Londonderry the first home of Burton Snowboards, thank you for being there for him in the workshop and on the local hills. Thank you for always believing in him. I know today he would be humbled and grateful for all the work you've done in recognizing the birthplace of Burton. So before we go to take a look at the historic marker and check out the exhibit, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Southern Vermonter and 5-time Winter Olympian, the most winningest snowboarder, male or female, that the sport has ever seen. And always a personal inspiration to me and Jake, Kelly Clark.
Yeah, Kelly.
All right, everybody ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah! How cool is that, huh?
How cool is that?